So there's lots of our listeners are into, well, there's a lot of hunters and bow hunters who'll be listening to this, I would guess. And if nothing else, I like bow hunting, so you can tell me this, answer the question for me. Like, what are your top 3 or 4 tips for somebody when they're out there pursuing a deer or an elk or something that they want to go and, in my case, shoot an arrow at, but in other people's case, whatever. What are those top 3 or 4 things that we need to bear in mind when we are actually tracking that moose print that we've seen or whatever it might well be?
I mean, for me, just to give you a bit of an idea of how I see tracking, I'm not unique in this, but the way I think about it in my head, there are 2 types of tracking. There's track and sign, which is kind of the tracks and signs that you find, the individual things that you see out in nature. So that's everything from, scat or shit or poo, whatever you want to call it, but trackers call it scat. Scat, feeding signs, homes, dens, behavioral signs, territorial marks, feathers, seeds which have been eaten by a mouse, all that stuff. That's almost like the library of stuff that you want to build up in your head. And that takes years of experience. It's kind of just building up that library of all that natural history knowledge and all the things that you've seen. And that's one side of it. And then the other side of it is trailing, and that's actually following an animal. So that's not the individual stuff so much. It's more the process of actually being able to trail something. And that's a different skill. But the 2 are absolutely intertwined. It's crucial that you to be able to trail properly, you have to have an understanding of the track and sign. So first thing I'd say to people is, don't leave any stone unturned. Even if you're not out trailing an animal on a specific day, everything you learn, every piece of track and sign that you can see and identify and add to that library in your head will help you. And that goes all the way into things like bird language as well. Things which really experienced and amazing hunters will be able to actually sort of be able to tell whether an animal is out of sight just by the way the birds are behaving. So all of that stuff, first thing I'd say is build up that library. Bring feathers home and identify them. It might not seem like that's going to be very pertinent to you on the next time you're out trailing an elk, but believe me, by the time you've amassed 10 years of that kind of stuff, you are so much more in tune with the landscape and tracking that you're so much better off. That's the first thing I'd say. I guess the next thing I'd say is time. These things take time. You have to be able to learn how to trail something properly, you really have to practice and really, really practice. And I think if people are sort of starting out trailing an animal, start really slowly. Consider it an absolute success if you manage to follow an animal for 100 meters. And if you're ultimately you're not going to be able to trail an animal to see it the first time. These things are difficult, and you will have to just put a lot of time into it. Make life easy. If you're learning how to do it, go to somewhere where the substrate, so that's our posh word for sand, snow, mud, leaf litter, whatever the ground conditions are. Go to somewhere where it's easy and learn your trade there, because it's very difficult to start learning how to trail. In my case, in the UK, the substrate's almost always very difficult. It's usually wet leaf mold, and it's a very difficult place to learn how to trail. So make your life easy. Go somewhere where you can actually see the tracks and build up your confidence, because every time you have a little bit of success, every time you can see another difficult track, you're adding to your knowledge and you're increasing your ability to see finer details. And that's absolutely crucial. And I guess with trailing, I think something I learned from a guy called Mark Elbrock, who's a very famous American tracker, and it really stuck in my head, was that trailing isn't about following footprints. It's about finding animals. And there's a big difference when you think about that. It's not about following every single print. It's not about looking for the next compression. It's about using that library, which I explained beforehand, that natural history knowledge, to be so in tune with the landscape that you can make guesses about where the animal might be. And they're not just guesses, really. They're informed guesses. It's what we call speculative tracking. And it's good trackers like the Bushmen I've spent time with bushmen, not in South Africa, but in Namibia. And good trackers who still have traditional tracking knowledge are amazing speculative trackers. It's like they have a sixth sense about where the animal might be. And that isn't magic. I have a bit of a bugbear in the world of tracking, which is that there are plenty of people who pretend that they can hold their hand over a track and just sense where the animal is and what it was doing and what kind of animal it was from the magic that they feel up through the track. Now, I don't believe in any of that. I think I've been out with bushman trackers and it seemed like magic how good they were at being able to trail an animal, but actually it isn't magic. They have so much experience with that landscape, and all that library in their head is so well developed that they're able to make extremely impressive, informed decisions and be able to trail an animal like you wouldn't believe. So I think that those are kind of the key things I think I've learned about tracking over the years.